Base, that's an best gunshot. David, yeah, an incredible mass of people moving northbound along Crenshaw with the funeral procession. A majority of these people were actually in front of the Marathon store as the procession moved westbound or eastbound on Slauson Avenue, approaching Crenshaw. And for the last mile or so, they've continued to move on foot with that procession, which is continuing to crawl ever so closer to the Angelus funeral home, which will be the final destination for tonight of Nipsey Hussle's casket and hearse that you see there in the center of your screen. Thousands and thousands of folks paying their respects here today, taking a moment, lots of pictures, flowers being thrown at the hearse, and really quite a remarkable moment here in South LA. There were some tense moments around 4 o'clock where things got a little bit rowdy over on Crenshaw and Slauson in front of the clothing store, but LAPD quickly regained control of the situation. They've been able to control the traffic situation as well. It's just been a slow, snail's pace crawl ever since they left the Inglewood area. It's been a nice slow roll through South LA here along Slauson. Now, again, as I mentioned, just northbound on Crenshaw Boulevard. Guys, back over to you.
All right, Chris, thank you. Well, the massive crowd outside Nipsey Hussle's Marathon clothing store has completely overwhelmed the surrounding area.
Eyewitness News reporter Rob Hayes is live outside that store with more. Rob?
Yeah, a big change in the crowd here. It's really started to dissipate. Earlier today, thousands of people were gathered in front of the Marathon. That's the clothing store owned by Nipsey Hussle, place where he was gunned down. The procession started passing by this area around 6 o'clock tonight. It didn't completely make it through till about 6:45. That's how slow it was moving. The vast majority of people who came here were respectful and peaceful, but there were a few moments when things got scary. Something sparked a stampede in this crowd earlier in the afternoon. One witness said there was a person in the crowd who was arguing with a police officer, and when that officer reached for his handcuffs, everyone started running. People lost their shoes. There were broken glasses found in the street, and it happened again still a few minutes later. Now, also, a small number of people at the gathering trashed a police car. They tagged it. Others piled on top of it. But it is important to note that other than these few problems, the crowd was respectful and safe. People we spoke with hoping Nipsey Hussle's death will lead to some good.
And he was about the children. You know, anybody's for the children, I'm for it. And giving back genuinely, you know. He's not just walking around here doing something that's crazy. He's actually making sure that he give back and give back with his heart.
I hope it means that we're able to do things that we couldn't do before, you know? Hopefully him dying wasn't in vain, and it puts people in a headspace where they feel like they need to do better.
Nip did a lot for this community, touched a lot of lives, and impacted so many, you know, these people are here because of the love for Nip.
Again, there was a massive crowd here earlier today. It is dissipating. Many of the folks we talked to had tried to get tickets to the Staples Center, but were unable to, so they figured this is the next best place to go. Also, many of them coming not just from out of town, but from out of state as well. Reporting live in Hyde Park, Rob Hayes, ABC 7 Eyewitness News.
All right, Rob, you certainly touched so many lives. Well, let's go now live to Veronica Miracle.
She's live outside the Angelus funeral home where Hussle's final victory lap will end. And Veronica, they're making some progress. They're getting close to you.
They are, and because of that, things have really changed here. Now, when I last checked in with you, there were a lot of people lined up on either side of this road where the hearse is expected to pass by. There was police tape that has since been torn down because if you follow me, for some reason, everybody just swarms the intersection here at Crenshaw and 39th. I'm sure it has to do with the fact that the procession is getting closer to us, but that, of course, has caused a huge traffic problem. I mean, look at these people. They're just sitting on their cars because they know that they're not going anywhere. This just randomly happened. Oh, and it looks like we got possibly a lowrider in here coming through. So it's kind of turned into a party in the street, which is going to become a problem when that procession comes our way. We also understand that the crowd is following that procession from the clothing store. So it's going to get bigger here. You've got people up on the rooftop, people on either side of Crenshaw Boulevard, and then, of course, right here in the middle of the intersection. So if you are driving driving in this area, or you know somebody that has to pass through here, avoid it at all costs, because this is only going to get worse. Back to you guys.
Oh, all right, Veronica, thank you very much. Important information. Well, the day began with a moving memorial to Nipsey Hussle at the Staples Center.
Thousands of people from all walks of life filling the 20,000-seat venue today.
see Mama Nip.
Yeah.
Like Mama Nip.
That's her had the bell on her head?
Yeah.
Yeah, I seen her. Yeah. 60?
Yeah, there was a warehouse that was selling them $100 a pop.
Huh?
So I got 100, so I only bought 60.
That's what's up, bro.
I've been coming every day. I work building stages.
Yeah.
So I get to see him in this concert. Right. I go all across the stage.
Is that right?
Yeah. I mean, it sucks because when you talk to him, he's like, he knows.
You gotta keep it humble, bro.
But he loves me. He's calling me. I think that 1%. Dude, don't catch her. I was running with this. We went over to
of force behind the love for Nipsey Hussle.
The motorcycles are now getting in. I don't know if that's supposed to happen or not. It does appear. Let's see, police officers are standing there, and then it does appear to be maybe they're letting them in.
How would they monitor this? That's sort of the challenging thing.
Right.
How do they monitor this?
Well, it's
you
interesting.
See those other cars in the back, right there.
The wild card to all of this, Colleen and Chris, is what does the crowd do now? Are they going to stay on the premises? Are they going to continue to gather? Are they going to eventually go home? Of course, there's always that concern when the sun goes down, things happen.
You're absolutely right. And I know, Chris, you've been seeing a lot of law enforcement. We see them right there. You see all the flashing lights, but it might be a very challenging night ahead to keep the peace.
Yeah, Colleen, still a few more vehicles left to drive into the parking lot there. There is a fair amount of LAPD, surprisingly enough, on the other side there by that other gate. I mean, the hope is at this point, once everybody's in there, the hope is that they will, you know, start making their way out of the area and start making their way home, obviously. But LAPD does have a few units here at the funeral home providing security and making sure this ends nice and peacefully here. You can see the LAPD air support overhead as well, doing some orbits and making their presence known. But the crowd, I've got to say, while it's a sizable crowd and while they are very emotional, it is a very, very peaceful crowd, which is the good news. You can see about a dozen vehicles that look like they are a part of the original procession that left the Staples Center earlier this morning. A lot of these vehicles that you're looking at right here weren't actually able to keep up with the procession all day because of other vehicles that were joining and falling back during the procession. Here you can see a large contingent of LAPD officers standing by, but at the end of the day, all of those original vehicles that made their way out of the Staples Center are now rejoining Nipsey Hussle's hearse here at the funeral home.
Oh, yeah, absolutely, Chris. Well, thank you. We're going to head to the ground. Eyewitness News reporter Veronica Miracle, she's been out here right on the ground all day. Veronica, how is it from your standpoint now?
Well, Colleen, I actually am just kind of stuck in the middle of this huge crowd right next to the gate. In fact, it's just so hard to move around because there's so many people wanting to get a glimpse. A lot of people, when that hearse came through, were just, you know, putting their hands all over. Everybody wanted to touch it. And I think that's what we've seen along the whole procession here. But you're seeing a lot of motorcycles burn out and just this crowd converging here as these cars try to get through. And you know, I see a lot of people on social media, a lot of people, you know, just kind of cheering and celebrating his life. It really doesn't feel much like anybody is mourning anymore. Everyone's just celebrating the impact that he had on this community. And watching as this procession comes to an end here, it's definitely turning into a party and a celebration. Can you hear me still? I think I lost you.
Yeah, it is tough to hear you, Veronica, because it is very obvious that you, are right in the middle of that crowd. It's not only the voices, but it's those really loud motorcycles, the vehicles that are drowning you out. But you are safe, though, aren't you?
Yes, we are safe. Wanting to get a glimpse of the procession, so that's why everyone's crowded over here. But yeah, everyone's just celebrating at this point.
That's correct. It's great to hear. Yeah, we're going to keep checking back in with Veronica. I know, Chris Christie, you're live overhead. We're seeing your images, and we're seeing more and more cars making through. But of course, you know, I think you said it earlier, a lot of these cars could not keep up with the hearse. It was impossible because of all the fanfare around it.
That's right, and they really had minimal, traffic units to help escort the procession at their disposal. LAPD did not partake in the escort. It was all private motorcycles, private security who provided some clearance at most of the intersections, but at times they got stuck in traffic. At other points, we've seen motorcycles and other members of the community joining the pursuit, trying to keep up on bicycles and scooters and running along with the procession. And it's been a very interesting afternoon here in South LA, but again, with the exception of a little bit of stampede at one point over on Crenshaw and Slauson, where there were a couple of minor injuries, but LAPD was quickly able to regain control of that situation. With that exception, though, it's really been a very dignified day and a really, I would say, a successful funeral procession here. Despite a couple of exceptions, it's been really a pretty calm day and a really emotional day for a lot of the folks who you see right here in this shot.
Wow, and they're still trying to get some of this. I'm assuming that these vehicles are part of the procession. I don't know for sure because there are folks standing now in front of these vehicles. Maybe they don't want them in there, but
I'm not sure they are. It looks like somebody's trying to push them back and get them in reverse. I think they would like to at this point close that white gate. You can see some people have actually made their way through there for really no good reason. There's no business at this point being on the premises there. They really want to back those vehicles up, which is going to be a challenge now that they've kind of made it this far with all of those people that have crowded 38th or 39th Street rather. It's going to be a little bit difficult there, but they will eventually clear that area. I mean, again, I think the point is there's just not much left to see here today, and they would like to clear the area before it gets too dark, as you mentioned, David.
Right.
No kidding. And you see, I think more and more people are trying to jump into that the pickup truck in the back of there to try to get inside, but it's impossible to see how they're going to try to push people back. They're going to have to, but they're going to have police probably try to get in, and that'll be the problem. Yes,
that's absolutely true. Okay, so we have it was a very brief moment, but right after the hearse arrived here at the funeral home, they quickly got the hearse, the casket of Nipsey Hussle out of that hearse. So we have some video to show you right now of that very brief moment as the hearse pulled in, and immediately they pull out Nipsey Hussle's casket and bring it into the funeral home. Well, I thought we had it.
Yeah, we have that video. We
do not have it.
We do not have that video right now.
Okay, so we'll get to that shortly. Looks like they're going to let those vehicles in and just kind of solve the problem the other way.
Well,
but
you see the person saying no more vehicles, but I don't know if the person who's saying no more vehicles is an official with the funeral home or what have you, because that car was not obeying those kind of commands. It just kept going forward, so the person was almost going to get hit by that car.
Now he's saying he's with them.
I think he's from the Nation of Islam. I believe I saw him a little bit earlier in the procession, so he's now trying to allow them to close that gate. And any of these other cars that don't belong, I don't know which ones are officially part of the procession or not exactly, but these will be able to, there you go, see the gate is closing. Any of these other vehicles on this side of the gate can be let out on the other side. It's almost like a drive-through, this parking lot at this funeral home. So they can still exit the parking lot, and they still have a lot of folks in there that don't really belong in there. But I think for the time being, it looks like everything is under control down there. It's just a massive
It doesn't look like they will not let them. Chris, they will not let them close that gate. You just keep
let
seeing
them close the gate. So now it looks. I mean, he's only one man. There's really only so much he can do, to be honest.
We're just trying to
you.
get that motorcycle motorcycle rider out in the other direction too. I'm trying to also scour the crowd, see if we could find Veronica. In the meantime, as we promised, right after the hearse arrived, watch closely. There is a casket of Nipsey Hussle. They moved very quickly, and they got it out of the hearse, and they moved it within the funeral home. So yeah, it took a matter of just seconds. They quickly moved him in to the funeral home. That was just moments ago. And this is back live, and yet another vehicle.
Several more vehicles, David.
Yeah, they're letting a few more vehicles in. The problem is some of these, I mean, still you have folks who are, crowding the vehicles, crowding that white gate, and there's a real danger, of getting hit by these cars. I mean, here they're going to close the gate again, but there are still other cars again. Whether they're part of the official procession or not, I don't know. But they're still trying to get in here. It looks like they're taking the opportunity. They're going to close that gate, and hopefully that'll be it, and they can regain control of the area here. I would not be surprised if LAPD, those officers that we saw a little bit ago, make their way over to this side of the funeral home and begin dispersing the crowd. At this point, I mean, it's a peaceful crowd, obviously, but they don't want to let it. There's no sense in blocking traffic I mean, look at that. Once again, opening the gate, letting some more people in here, and including some more vehicles. So, I mean, this could go on for a little bit here, but again, they can drive through here. It's impossible for these cars to go in reverse. You saw the number of people at the intersection there, but it looks like there's a handful more that are trying to gain access to the funeral home. Again, whether they're part of the procession or not, I'm not sure.
Yeah,
that's a good shot right there. You see, yes, this procession of cars still goes for quite some time.
And you're right, they can't reverse. So how, I mean, how other, there has to be an exit out of this funeral home as well, hopefully on the other side. Somewhere, like that's the entrance, or maybe there's an exit, because not everybody probably wants to be in there either, but they don't have another way to turn around.
Well, there may be one final ceremony that's going to take place inside the funeral home, a private one at that, for the family and friends. So they do want to get in there. It's just a matter of who belongs in there and who doesn't, and trying to determine who does. So that's a difficult thing that they're going to have to iron out. And look, so a lot of those cars do look like that they might belong in that that entourage. It's just a matter of kind of gathering them all and making sure that they remove the ones that don't belong and get the right ones in there. It's a tough call.
It really is. But you're right, David. They do look like they are part of this procession. Chris, we're talking about many of these cars actually look like they're part of the procession as well. So trying to figure out who belongs behind those gates and who doesn't is kind of tricky.
Crowd. So
I mean, the doors, I think, are closed, but there's still a crowd gathering around the hearse. Obviously, we already saw the casket being offloaded and into the funeral home. You know, they may have to, for those other vehicles that are still outside the perimeter of the funeral home, they may have to park temporarily until they can figure out how to get some of them might be family members or close friends and associates, and they're going to want to pay their final respects today before tomorrow's service here at the funeral home. But again, LAPD is down there, and there is a way to exit this parking lot other than that white gate entrance right there. So anybody who doesn't belong will be able to be escorted out off the property if they don't belong here. But obviously, you do have quite a crowd there that has built up along 39th Street and Crenshaw Boulevard. Incidentally, they actually have, LAPD has 39th Street shut down. So a lot of the cars that were coming up Crenshaw are unable to make a left turn onto 39th. Here you see some more vehicles that may very well have family members on board, so they're letting them through here. There was a few more behind him too, so we'll see how this plays out here, but certainly you can see some folks starting to make their way out and filtering out. I think if we pan back over to where that hearse parked, there was another crowd kind of forming around that vehicle, but really there's not much left to see tonight. I don't know how they're going to decide who to let into whatever final service they have tonight inside the building, but that'll be up to them, I guess.
I wonder if those are folks that were in those large vans and all those vehicles. They might be waiting for maybe a final ceremony inside, and they're just, maybe there's some prep going on inside, so the doors aren't open yet. That's my thought. But in the meantime, you saw that huge crowd at the gate. Veronica Miracle is in that crowd, and she joins us right now with an update. Veronica, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you. Hopefully you can hear and see me. People are literally popping champagne right now. They are celebrating in the streets here. This crowd is kind of going towards the gates and trying to get another glimpse of the hearse. And then as Chris Christie was talking about, 39th Street and that intersection at Crenshaw, of course, is shut down because there are people who have gone into the street here. But hey, you guys are all mourning? All right.
SIP neighborhood.
How was the end of the procession? Did you get to see it?
It was wonderful. You know what I'm saying? Yeah.
A lot of love out here tonight?
Yes, it is. SIP neighborhood, we love you, bro. Thank you for all of it, man.
All right. So obviously a lot of people here very excited and eager to celebrate his life now that the mourning is over. We'll send it back to you guys.
All right, Veronica, thank you very much for that live report. It is great to see you out there. And we are talking about it. You know, Veronica's been out there all day. A lot of these people have been out there all day waiting to get a glimpse of the casket that was carrying Nipsey Hussle, getting a glimpse of the hearse, getting to see all these people. We don't know who's inside these vehicles, but maybe they're you know, they want to get a glimpse of everybody who's getting into this funeral home.
It's a perfect example of how this story has grown exponentially. It started with the death of Nipsey Hussle Sunday before last, and it just seemed that there was an initial outpouring that only got larger and larger. So it became a story that had its own life and has grown to this point to where now people want to be part of it.
They do, and there's so many people out there, and you know, as sort of the sun goes down, you don't know how long people are going to want to stay out there. You know, there's adults, there's families out there, there's children out there, so obviously we're staying on top of it, and we're going to be monitoring the situation all evening long. But again, it's very peaceful. A lot of people just wanting to show their respect, show the love, and it's been quite a sight to see all afternoon, David, because
Right.
this has taken far longer to make it to the funeral home.
Right. There's only been one situation that got a little bit dangerous where Rob Hayes was back by the Marathon store, but it was lasted 10 seconds and it was all cleaned up. So far, we haven't heard of anything else that's happened. So we're going to stay on top of this. That's a live picture. We'll continue to monitor the situation. Real quick break and we'll be right back.